The Hollywood story of Bronny James has officially jumped the shark, with reports that his G League assignment will only consist of home games. Look, I was fine when the Lakers used a late second-round pick on Bronny. Teams have wasted second-rounders for worse reasons over the years. I even understood why James began the season with the big club, allowing LeBron and Bronny to officially become the first father-son duo in league history on opening night, and paving the way for Bronny to score his first points in his hometown of Cleveland. Now it seems everyone involved in this charade has lost the plot, though. Once the early season milestones were out of the way, the Lakers should have worked on normalizing this obviously abnormal and unprecedented situation as much as possible. Not for the sake of public opinion, but for Bronny's future as a professional. The pre-existing knocks on his game have been on display in his mostly garbage time minutes. His size is an issue, he hasn't been able to create separation with the ball in his hands, and he's missed 5 of his 6 shots. In other words, he's not NBA ready. And that's fine. Most 20-year-olds drafted late in the second round aren't. But he needs professional game reps, not just NBA practice time and courtside pep talks. Those game reps will only be available to him in the G League, where he's now going to play, once a week? The assumption now is that the rigors of G League road life are beneath Bronny. How will that fly with his part-time teammates in a league full of grinders trying to scrape their way to the NBA, or with his peers in the association who aren't wearing purple and gold-colored glasses? You can hear more about my take on Bronny on this Friday's Unfiltered. But for now, welcome to the Unfiltered Show, presented by Under Armour and Curry Brand. I've got the Curry 12 Gravity on. They are great. Our guests today are Chicco, Nacion, and the host of the Locked On Raptors podcast, Sean Woodley. What's going on, guys?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm good. A little heated about Bronny. No, I'm not really. I'm not really that heated, but I think it's worth. At least talking about. So I wanted your thoughts on it. You guys heard my spiel on it. Like I said, people can hear the rest of my spiel on Friday's episode of Unfiltered. But Chicco, what do you think? Is this a story to you? Do you care? Not care? Does this change anything you thought about this story beforehand?
I guess if you're looking at, if the whole goal of this was to get Bronny, to his long-term development, if you have the big picture in the mind of him being in the NBA and having a lengthy career, going part of the G League, it's all part of the process. And like you touched upon, there's a lot of guys, second-round picks, 20 years old, that aren't ready for the league. And that's just the reality, and there's no problem with that. There are a lot of guys that have been to the G League who have had to carve out their time there before they are able to have good careers. You look at guys like Pascal Siakam, Chris Middleton, even Scottie Pippen Jr. recently. Like, these are guys that went down, they did the work in the G League, and now they're productive NBA players. And I think for Bronny, if that is the goal, for him to have a lengthy career in this league, he's got to go down there and do the work. Like, he can't just be playing, a game a week. He needs focused coaching. He needs a staff that's going to be on him to prioritize his development. And he's just not going to get that there at the NBA level.
Can we just let Bronny be normal?
Exactly.
I feel like I don't feel bad for Bronny James. Bronny James is fine. He's the son of LeBron. He's good in big picture terms, but I do feel bad for him because his career has almost been co-opted by this whole father-son thing, and that's a bummer. I think, and it even goes back to his college time, right? He literally almost died.
Yeah.
His whole pre-draft season was basically cast aside for that, and it sucks. I'm glad he got back. I'm glad he got picked. I think he probably would have gotten picked maybe even higher if everything hadn't happened with his health. He's not allowed to just be a normal prospect who has some stuff to work on, though. And, yeah, not letting him just spend time in the G League to do what normal, as you said, 20-something prospects taken into the second round do, it's hurting him. It's hurting his sort of just, individuality as a player. Just let Bronny be Bronny, and this whole, you're going to play the home games, and, we're going to throw you in ceremonially when the opposing road crowd chants to see you. That's not good for Bronny. I don't imagine how he's and maybe he is happy with it, right? Players have agency and all this. Maybe he's cool, but I have a hard time thinking this is exactly how he saw his NBA career starting out.
No, I'm with you, and that's exactly what I was getting to, where it's I was fine with all the other stuff. I know there were cynics and there were haters for him getting drafted, for him getting the guaranteed contract, for him getting the opening night minutes, and even the garbage time minutes he's gone. But I was fine with all that. It's just at this point it has become a charade, and you're almost giving those people credence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people that said, "Oh, all it is a gimmick. It's just this is what LeBron wants," and they're catering to him. Those people kind of look like they have a point now.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy,
right?
Now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that kind of rankles me about it is that they consistently told us, like JJ Redick, I think on Media Day talked about how important Bronny's development is to not because he's LeBron's son, but because he's really the first player in the JJ era there that they get to like mold and develop. Okay, but then now you're doing this, and it's like, well, now we can't believe you because, listen, if Dalton Connect got this like G League home games only thing when they want to give him more time, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. He's in the Lakers rotation.
Sure.
Maybe they want to get him some more time here and there, throw him in the G League when they're both at home, makes sense. But like a project like Bronny doing it doesn't make any sense. And the perfect comparison is his Lakers teammate, Max Christie. I went back and looked at this. He was a second-round pick in 2022. He averaged 12 and a half minutes as a rookie, 4 times as many minutes as Bronny got, and looked more NBA ready. Not NBA ready, but more so than Bronny did in his rookie year. He had 15 G League assignments, and multiple of those assignments included road games. So what's the difference, right? Like, unless they're going to say, well, now, JJ's different. He wants his, all the prospects. No, it stinks, obviously, of what we, think it to be, and it's probably a charade that LeBron has a hand in with Lakers management. And to Sean's point, maybe Bronny's involved in it too, but it's just not a good look all around.
Now that we've had the historic moment where we've seen him play with his dad, can we trade him to like the Nets?
Yeah.
Just like be normal on a bad team and figure it out. Like
exactly.
that's the perfect outcome here.
Yeah. And then he can play 82 G League games because he's playing for the Brooklyn Nets. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about some actual NBA players, but sticking with charades, the NBA All-Star Game. We know how much angst there's been in the league office, even among some players, among some legends, in terms of how lifeless the All-Star Game has become, how little players seem to care about competing in it. Last year, there was all the talk going into the game. They got this pep talk from, I think, Larry Bird and maybe Magic Johnson. Like, this year, they're ready to compete. We talked about it before the game, Adam Silver said, and then the players came out and cared less about it than they ever have before. Reportedly, according to Shams Charania, the format for this year's All-Star Game, or at least the one that was recently proposed to the competition committee, is that instead of standard 2 teams, whether it's West and East or Team LeBron, Team Curry, whatever, is going to be 3 teams of 8 players playing in a tournament, a 3-game tournament where it's 2 teams play, the 2 winners play in the final. And it would be the 3 All-Star teams of 8 players each instead of 2 teams of 12 players each. And the 4th team would be the winning team from the Rising Stars game on the Friday night. So, Sean, we'll start with you. What do we make of it? Do you like this? Do you think they needed to tweak anything? Do you think this will save All-Star Weekend in the NBA, or at least the All-Star Game?
I mean, anytime you can take an idea that the NHL started, like, you simply have to, right? They're really good at marketing their sport. You just got to go and do what the NHL is doing. Yeah, I mean, I don't need the All-Star Game to matter. Like, I'm fine if the All-Star Game is just like some dudes doing cool dunks and being, kissing babies and doing the famous people thing. That's fine by me. It's not for me. It's for like the corporate sponsors in the city it's being held and the fans in the city it's being held. I don't know why there's this urge to have meaning behind a game that means nothing. And then if they were to go do the thing that, like, say, baseball did, where it's like, hey, the winner of the All-Star Game gets home field in the World Series, if that was to happen in the NBA, people would lose their minds over that too. Like, it feels like a problem that you're just not going to fix, and I think that's fine. The tournament idea, I mean, Adam Silver loves a tournament. It's like his favorite thing in the world. I get why they're going this way. I'm sure it'll be fine. I don't think it's going to make the players care anymore. There's just going to be more games for them to not care about. So, yeah, I mean, the Rising Stars part is fun, I guess. It's interesting. That maybe is sort of the best hook of it all. But I just, like, why do we care if the All-Star Game means anything? It's not supposed to. It's for corporate sponsors and the people who want to not watch it. Just, like, go on vacation. It's fine. You don't have to watch the All-Star Game.
Go on vacation like the players in the NBA who don't make the All-Star
Exactly.
Game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it really having that much of effect on the players' effort level. Like, I think at the end of the day, like, they're now in that mindset of this is an 82-game season and they want to preserve their bodies for the playoffs. Now, I could see it kind of having like a temporary rise in effort level, like we saw with the Elam ending when they put in for the first year. Like, we actually saw some, Kyle Lowry taking a charge there. We had guys laying up for loose balls. Like, I think you might see a temporary effect, like maybe from the Rising Stars. Like, we saw in the Rising Stars competition, we saw Jaden Ivey and Ben Mathurin having some actual serious trash talk between the two. And so maybe those young guys, they want to have a chance to take something against, the guys they idolize or at least model their game after. They might take that a little bit more seriously, but I think overall, I just don't see the players really buying into that. It's very hard to do, and I don't really know what the solution would be.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing, and you were touching on it there, is like in addition to the rising stars guys, the young guys, the rookies and the sophomores, really wanting to beat the all-stars, maybe I can see how the NBA is hoping, like, in turn, NBA all-stars don't want to lose to rookies and sophomores, right? Mm-hmm. Like, maybe there's like a pride that kicks in. But the reason I don't think this will fix anything, and the reason, and I wrote about this last year, I made a video about it last year on our Unfiltered series, the reason I don't think there's any saving the all-star game, no matter the tweak, is because there's no changing the fact that the players don't seem to care anymore. And to Sean's point, they don't have, like, whether it matters to us, whether the players care or not, I guess, who cares? But from the league's perspective, someone needs to, like, make it clear to listen, the players don't care anymore. And until they do, nothing's going to matter. And so maybe all these tweaks are just trying to create ways for the players to care. But, like, you mentioned that 2020, I think it was the 2020 All-Star game in Chicago, and the Kyle Lowry taking the charges and, like, guys going out. I was there for that game. And the crowd atmosphere during that time was great because fans were engaged in a tight game that the players themselves were clearly invested in, right? And that's how you create fan interest. That's why I think it does matter whether they care or not, because if you want the fans to care at all, the players have to look like they care. And the reason I don't think we'll see that again is a couple comments players have made over the last couple of years that to me tells the whole story. Paul George, I think in 2023, was quoted as saying something along the lines of like, I don't want to be, or no one wants to be the one guy out there hustling and body checking when no one else is, right?
Yeah, how dare you want to try?
Exactly. And then
an absolute crime.
Exactly. And then Tyrese Halliburton on a podcast with Barack Obama, when Obama called him out and the All-Stars out for saying, like, you guys got to fix that. Like, the All-Star game's become a sham. Like, you guys got to try harder. Tyrese Halliburton said something along the lines of like, well, like I was coming off the bench and I checked in and you're kind of like feeling it out of what's everyone else doing before. This is the problem with the All-Star game. And a perfect example of the players not caring because they're so worried about, well, what's the tone everyone else is setting? And I don't want to be the one guy trying too hard. Players nowadays seem like, I don't want to sound like an old man yelling at cloud here, but like the young generation of players now, it seems like they think they have more to lose by like trying and losing or trying and maybe getting dunked on, whatever, than they do by just not trying at all, by showing us they don't care. Where have all the Kyle Lowrys gone,
This is the fix.
Like
every all-star roster, there's one designated maniac spot where you just get a guy who's a nasty competitor. Maybe he's not your best player. Maybe he's just a little guy who comes in off the bench with crazy energy for 5 minutes a night. But you put that guy on the all-star team and brings the level of everybody else up. The maniac spot, the Kyle Lowry Memorial maniac spot on the all-star team.
I love that idea. There you go, Adam Silver.
Are we calling Pat Bev back from Tel Aviv?
Honestly,
to come over?
Bring
another
Pat
career
Bev.
resurgence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring whoever you need over because that's exactly what I'm saying. You need guys who don't care whether everyone else is playing or not. When they step on a basketball court, even if it's an all-star game, they just want to win. And okay, they're not going to try to hurt guys as an all-star game. Maybe they're not going to foul a guy as hard or dig in on every single possession, but they'll dig in on some possessions. If it's a tight game late, they're going to dig in. Like, you need guys like that don't care about, how they're being perceived by the other all-stars. And to me, those comments by PG 2 years ago and Halliburton this year just say it all. And it's like, no matter the tweak, you're not going to get this, again, I hate to sound like an old man, this generation of players to care, no matter how many Larry Bird pep talks they get in the pregame locker room. On that note, though, I think we can all agree that the best part of All-Star Weekend last year was the Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu shooting competition. And part of the reports with all the format tweaks this year are that it could come back this year, and not only will it come back, but that with the All-Star game and weekend being in the Bay, in San Francisco, we could see a Splash Brothers reunion of Steph and Clay against Sabrina Ionescu and Caitlin Clark. I assume we all think that's a win, even if we don't think the All-Star game format tweaks a win.
I'm in for that. I mean, All-Star Saturday Night is what All-Star Weekend is about. Even if the dunk contest is bad, it's still good because guys are trying dunks and we all love it. Same goes for the three-point contest. Sometimes it's more dramatic than other times. These extra little implements, the Steph versus Sabrina thing was awesome. Do more of that. that's the you get to see these guys kind of be more personable. They're doing things that they actually seem to want to win and try for without putting their bodies on the line. 100% all in for more of these little fun implementations. And frankly, my idea is you get rid of the game itself and just make the marquee event the Saturday night. You name your all-stars, you get the little score on your basketball reference page, and you just get to do 2 nights worth of dunk contest and 3-point contest. Come up with more ways to do the skills challenge and make it more fun and interactive and long form. Like, that's the way you make All-Star Weekend more interesting, is just doing more stuff that's not the actual game. Because the Saturday night stuff, the shooting stars that used to exist, bring that back. Like, all of that stuff where guys are competing at things that are basketball adjacent.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
I hear you, but the one thing I was going to say is, earlier I thought you were joking and being sarcastic about saying the NHL has good ideas. Now I'm starting to think you actually think the NHL has good ideas.
Yeah.
Because that actually sounds like a very NHL-style All-Star Weekend. Not sure I want to go down that road. Chicco, your thoughts on the shooting competition and the change to that?
No, it'd be great. I think the All-Star Weekend should be a celebration of basketball.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great way to, obviously the games in the Bay Area this year, it's a great way to celebrate the Splash Brothers, that whole era they had with the Warriors. It's a good way to celebrate the WNBA and the year that they had, the historic season, by bringing Caitlin Clark into this. And we talked about maybe tweaking the format and the shooting stars. I like how we touched upon that. It's like, what if they decide to expand that? You have, Steph, Clay, Sabrina, Caitlin Clark. What if you add a legend to that and you bring back the shooting stars? Or maybe they do a little 3-on-3. Like, I do think they need to spice it up and bring something new to it, because with the dunk contest obviously just being a colossal fail, it seems like the last few years, they definitely need to spice it up and bring some excitement to All-Star Weekend.
Here's how you fix the dunk contest. You want people to compete and care? Everyone just gets to dunk on Rudy Gobert in the best and most disgusting way possible. Yeah. He just is out there, and everyone gets to go. It's carte blanche for how you dunk on Rudy Gobert. That's how you get people. That's how you get stars in the All-Star game.
Yes. The one thing I often talk about how people need to understand the NBA. It's roughly 450 people, and just like in any other sector of society, they're going to have different motivations and different. No, the one thing the other 449 players all agree on is that they hate Rudy Gobert. All right. Sticking with Bay Area time, the All-Star Weekend is going to be in the Bay Area. One of the hottest teams in the league plays in the Bay Area. Let's talk a little Warriors here on the Unfiltered Show, presented by Under Armour and Curry Brand. The Warriors, unless they're playing the Clippers, who they've lost to twice this year, look legit. It's going to pull my phone up here to bring up some numbers, but 10-3 through 13 games, number 5 offense, number 4 defense, only team in the league, top 5 on both ends. They've obviously had some notable wins, and even when you look at how they compare through 13 games to the 4 title teams in the Curry era, very comparable in terms of the record, always 10-3 or 11-2. The point differential, at plus 9.5, obviously a great point differential to start the year. So the numbers indicate the Warriors are a legit contender, that they're back. Maybe not back to the 73-win Warriors, but back in the title conversation. So, Chicco, we'll start with you. How real is this start? Are the Warriors actually back?
I don't know if I'm all the way there yet, but for sure, beating the Celtics on the road, I think that's got to be a huge boost to their confidence. After that game, I know Steph talked about the Warriors having the strength in numbers, that mantra, that rallying call of those great Warriors teams. And, Steve Kerr's been using that 12, 11-man rotation, which has kind of become a big thing, especially after the Olympics when you kind of refuse to kind of leave a few players out of there. But back to the Warriors, the fact that they've had this deep rotation, they've been able to mix guys in there, keep Steph fresh, and also, they have Buddy Hield on the bench with Kuminga, 2 guys that can generate offense for you, and they're the highest scoring second unit in the entire league. And the decision to move on from Klay Thompson in the offseason, I'm sure from an emotional perspective was tough, but if you just look at it from a basketball and financial perspective, it made perfect sense. They're paying Hield about $7 million less per season, and you get all the shooting that Hield is also providing that Klay would have provided. They were able to use that money elsewhere and get guys like Kyle Anderson, who's been a nice part of that bench, being able to run that second unit when Steph sits, versatile defender, and just being able to have someone that can facilitate the offense and take a little bit of pressure off him. And then you have some unsung heroes. You have like Lindy Waters being able to shoot the ball really well.
Someone tell Gary
Podziemski.
Payton, though, because I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, Gary Payton stole the pass Curry clearly was intending for Lindy Waters that would have been for the tie. Gary Payton just like runs into the pass, 25% career shooter, stealing it from like a 40% three-point shooter.
The man's wired for steals. I don't know what you want from him.
He did create the possession to go for the tie because he did steal the ball. So
Yeah, okay. Like great bench that they've had so far, and yeah, like I mean the fact that they were able to make themselves a deeper team now, they're able to kind of preserve Steph's minutes going forward. Like it doesn't seem like a lot, but 3 or 4 minutes each game that Steph doesn't have to play, it's going to add up when Steve Kerr is going to have to lean on him in those playoff games, or they're going to need Steph to play 36, 38 minutes a night.
100%.
Yeah, I buy them definitely as a regular season team. And that's because you mentioned strength in numbers. Like, they just have a lot of good NBA players. And there's a lot of power in that in the NBA now, where a lot of teams are thin just because of the cap restrictions and the aprons and the talent dispersal that causes. You have just like the grind of 82 games, rest, injury. We're seeing so many teams where it's like, oh, well, that team has good players, but 2 guys go down and it all kind of falls apart. Like, the Warriors have enough to sustain. Obviously, if Steph were to miss extended time, it's a different story. I don't know how much you can hold that up, even though they have that many good, nice NBA-level rotation players. But with a healthy Steph and all those guys in support, you have young guys like Podziemski and Kuminga who still have kind of internal growth potential as well. Like, this is totally a team that can be a regular season wins machine. They're very clearly good on both ends, being top 5 in both. Like, that is the recipe to win a million games. My concern with them comes in the playoffs, just when it comes to that sort of talent just beneath Steph Curry. We know Steph can take over and win a playoff series for you, obviously. But to win 3 playoff series in the Western Conference, I don't know if I'd take them against any of the real heavy hitters. They're a little bit small, like Trace Jackson-Davis and Draymond Green being their 2 best playable bigs. That gets a little tricky when you're up against the Jokic's of the world, or the Wolves, who are just size for days. The Thunder, I just think, are just similarly deep, similarly kind of annoying on both ends of the floor, just maybe a little bit more talented if, of course, Chet Holmgren's back and healthy. Isaiah Hartenstein, I think, is going to give them a lot of problems just because he's big. Like, again, they're really good in the Western Conference for racking up wins in the season. I don't know if I'd take them heads up with any of the real hitters out West in a playoff series, just because after Steph, I wonder where that secondary creation comes from. I wonder where the size comes from. And I think they will have just some holes that can be poked at by the Jokic's of the world. And similar, Luka Doncic even, right, with the Mavs. Like, I know the Mavs haven't been any great shakes, but that super high-end talent. Steph's incredible, but he's also 36 and not maybe quite on the level of those super-duper stars right now. And that's where my concern with them falls. But, like, how can you not be happier for the Warriors, right? Yeah. They've actually kind of made the 2 timelines thing work again. Like, it's maybe not going to end in a title, but certainly this is as good as you could hopefully ask for to close out Steph Curry's late prime. He's playing on a real, credible team. They're going to win a bunch of games in the regular season and have a real shot. Injuries happen. Like, I'm very impressed. I'm so happy that we're seeing Steph Curry playing meaningful basketball for a good team in the twilight of his career.
And I think it's important, too, for the franchise and for the relationship between the franchise and Steph, that letting Clay walk, or I guess was part of a sign and trade. And but you get what I'm saying. Like, losing him in free agency ended up okay because, as much as it made sense to us that they were letting Clay walk, Clay was not the player he was anymore. There's still an emotional, there's a human element to this, right? And Steph and Draymond played with the guy forever. They won championships with him. He's one of the best shooters ever. Even though he was not the player he once was, you lose a guy like that and you tell your franchise guy in Steph Curry, hey, we're not going to bring him back. Then you better come back with a good reason, right? Build a better team. Use the flexibility from losing him on building a deeper team, a better team. Find a guy like Buddy Hield who can replace him at a fraction of the cost and do what he does. And to be honest with you, at this stage of their careers, I think Buddy Hield's actually an upgrade on Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
And he looks like it so far. So I think it's also very important for the Warriors that all that stuff is coming to fruition, right? Like the stuff they probably told Steph, listen, right, we can't bring Klay back, but here's what we're going to do because we didn't bring him back. We're going to find you another shooter, a younger, probably more dynamic guy at this point of his career in Hield. We're going to surround you with a deeper team than you have in the last few years, and we can put it up. I know we've got some of the numbers, but like even Chicco, you were talking about how they're able to keep Steph fresh, right, this year. His minutes are the lowest they've been in years. His points per game are down, but his efficiency is still up there. It's only because he's not playing as much. His usage rate is the lowest it's been in more than a half decade. But his assists and his assist rate are up because there's other guys on the team doing it. There's other guys that can, they're winning the minutes when Steph's on the bench. That's huge for them.
Crazy. Yeah.
But to Sean's point, this whole 12 deep is great that Kerr's doing that. You can win a lot of regular season games like that. You can't go 12 deep in the playoffs against the best teams, right? You got to go 7 or 8 deep. And so that's where I think they might end up in trouble is once you lock horns with the powerhouses and you rely on your top 6, 7, maybe 8 players. We know Steph can do it, but who's their second best player? Is it Wiggins? Is it Draymond at this stage of his career, who's still great, on the defensive end? To their credit, and I guess in their defense, you can go to what Steve Kerr said just a couple days ago. It's the formula in 2022 was Steph and defense. And they are back to that. The defense is elite again. They're deeper than they were then. So maybe it is possible.
I think the West was less daunting at the top probably back then. That was the Nuggets. There was sort of one of their gap years, right? Before they got Jamal Murray back and were ready to go. Obviously, the Thunder have since emerged into this absolute horse of a team. Luka Doncic has evolved into Luka Doncic, where I don't think anyone's picking against him in a playoff series, or at least you're not feeling good if you're picking against him, right? So I think they benefited a little bit, and that's not to say there's an asterisk or anything like that, because there's no asterisk to any title unless you're the Bucks in 2021, the fakest season that ever happened. But yeah, it's just a different dynamic in the West now, and I think a couple years older for Steph too. I mean, they also have trade flexibility. The nice thing about having a million good players is you can trade the million good players for someone better to come back. Maybe I guess you can't circle back on the Larry Markkinen thing because of the rules and when he signed his deal. But, they were clearly in on him in the summer, kind of had notions of making a big consolidation trade. Maybe there's something they can do to go get more of a playable big who can kind of take up some of the burden that Trace Jackson-Davis carries, for example. Maybe there's a wing sort of consolidation they can get between Wiggins and Kuminga. Maybe there's someone they can bring. And obviously, it's tough to make trades in season for anyone, expensive teams in particular, but I don't think there's a very real chance the roster we're seeing now is maybe not the one we're going to see come spring anyway, which could totally change the equation.
Yeah, to Sean's point, I very much think that there was no secret in the summertime. They were going big game hunting. They were linked with Markkinen. They were even linked with Paul George at one point. And they have assets. People wanted Podziemski from them, and they put him off the table at the time. But I'm sure if teams would circle around and if there was that big name player that could make a difference, they wouldn't hesitate to include a guy like Podziemski if that were to happen again. So they're definitely, we don't know that name yet. We don't know who it's going to be, but I definitely wouldn't rule out that team because they're also willing to have paid the luxury tax. They've done that in recent years. I think when they signed, when they got Kelly Oubre to the team, it was a ridiculous amount in luxury tax just to add Kelly Oubre. But the fact that they were going to do that for a guy like Oubre, to do that for Steph, to how much loyalty they kind of felt to that core, I wouldn't rule them out for sure for making out a big move.
There is a team in the Eastern Conference that's underwhelming, has a center who would be the biggest player on, would sort of address the size thing. Maybe things aren't going so hot with his current team. Joel Embiid, future Warrior, anybody?
Wow, really trying to break the internet here. That would be hilarious for Philly. But, and honestly, I was going to say obviously not happening, but things keep going.
Who knows, man?
The one thing I was going to say, whoever the big name that the Warriors end up with is, he better be able to shoot free throws because obviously Steph, greatest free throw shooter of all time. The rest of the team, garbage. At free, they are, I think, the worst, if not one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the league, and it burned them again in their loss to the Clippers. Okay, I think we can move on to our final segment of the show. People that watch, we always have people on the panel here, always have people in studio, sometimes do a remote. The people in the studio are almost always going to be people from Toronto, where we are here. So we figured we'll do a check-in on those lowly Toronto Raptors once in a while. We'll call it Raps. We'll call it Raps City, since we are sitting here in Toronto. And in honor of the 6, we'll try to keep it to about 6 minutes or so. Now, Sean, I want to give you first dibs here because you actually, at Locked On Raptors, in your newsletter, you have something called Toxic Positivity Fridays, where you essentially try to find silver linings every week in this deplorable start from a wins and losses perspective. So I'll give you first dibs here. Talk to me. Give me one thing. We'll go around the couch that you are finding positive in a 3-12 start?
We laugh, but it's like the most fun 3-12 has ever been for any team. I'm having a great time. There's no expectations. I'm looking at the draft boards for next season, getting excited about who they're going to take. Like, there are worse things than being a fun, bad 3-12 team that I actually think once they get a little healthier might be too good to truly tank. But they've done a good job banking some losses early on. I think for me, like, it's RJ Barrett. Like, it's not been perfect, right? His efficiency is struggling big time. I think until his most recent outing on Monday night against the Pacers, he was a sub-50 true shooting guy. Not what you want. But he has, I think, taken a leap as like a pick-and-roll creator that I did not see coming for him. And I do think
to your point, sorry to interrupt, we actually have some of his playmaking numbers. I know we can put them up. Just looking at his assists and assist percentage compared to his career.
Totally,
it's sublime.
It's been like off the charts, not something I ever saw coming for him. I thought maybe at best, like connective passer, making the next read in the sequence type thing. But he is making like creative pick and roll reads, keeping defenses off balance with his like sort of herky-jerky style, the head bobs, the fakes. And obviously he's got the unstoppable Jakob Poeltl rolling down the middle for him too, which helps matters. But I think there's a hybrid version of the RJ Barrett we saw with the Raptors last year, where he was basically exclusively an off-ball play finisher, flying around screens, catching at the nail, driving and scoring, catch and shoot threes, wide open looks. And then this year, it's been a lot more difficult. There's more pull-ups. He's not very good at those. Get rid of those, please. He took more pull-ups in the game against the Pacers than he did in his entire time with the Raptors down the stretch last year. Like, it's changed his shot chart, having to be essentially the point guard for this team with no Quickley and Barnes. But I do think once you get Quickley and Barnes back, you can kind of blend the two versions of RJ, where he has this on-ball creation, he has this off-ball finishing. And in Darko Rajakovic's egalitarian offense, there's room for everyone to create, right? It's not this sort of pecking order where, okay, this guy, then this guy, then this guy. It's kind of just like everyone working the system to get the best shot for whomever gets the best shot in a given possession. And I think having a third guy who can help create alongside Scotty and Quickley, it opens up so much, right? Different bench units. You can stagger, Barrett and Poeltl with their incredible chemistry and have Barnes and Quickley work on their chemistry as they stagger with bench guys. You can avoid having to militantly stagger Quickley and Barnes' minutes so someone's on the floor to create at all times. That's great in theory. It's really tricky to do. Game flow changes your ability to do that. Having a third guy who can credibly run offense is huge, and this is a team that's kind of floating around middle of the pack on offense right now without a lot of their guys. If you combine all these guys into this sort of one Voltron of creative energy on offense, this can be a top 10 offense, which is going to be bad for the tank machine.
Which was one of my bold predictions for the Raptors season on Sean's Locked On Raptors podcast. Bold predictions episode for the season. I said the Raptors are they're gonna be bad, but they're gonna end up with a top 10 offense because of all those things you're mentioning. Chicco, what's the positive you can find in a team playing 200 basketball right now?
Well, you wrote about it earlier, but Grady Dick, obviously, he's just taken that leap this year. And, I mean, it didn't start off well his rookie season, as we all know. Wasn't shooting the ball well. Had to go down to the G League, which, hey, Bronny.
Played road games.
It does work. Going to the G League does work. And, he's taken that step. He looks a lot more comfortable. He's a lot more confident. With the pull-up, being able to come off screens, like, we're seeing, what we saw him out of him at Kansas. At Kansas, they used him off the ball as a cutter as well. And, he was a big part of that offense and the team that they had there. And he was obviously McDonald's All-American. So all of that is now kind of coming together for him. He's making that leap in that second year. And all of a sudden now you have a guy that, could potentially be averaging 15 to 20 points a night and even win. Guys get Quickley and Barnes like that. There's another source of steady offense that you're going to be getting from him. And that's encouraging going forward because, like I said, it did not look good for him when he started his rookie year. But the fact that now you basically, it looks like you've hit on a guy that he probably shouldn't have fell to them in the first place the year that he was picked. I think Orlando.
Jet Howard's fine, guys. It's all going to work out. Yeah.
They went with Jet Howard, which is kind of one of the head-scratching moves considering how much they needed shooting. And that was a spot there a lot of people were mocking Grady Dick to. So, the Raptors got fortunate that he did drop to them, and he's definitely paying dividends right now.
Yeah, and RJ's playmaking, Grady Dick's shooting, movement off the ball, these are all things that are going to help a Scotty Barnes when he comes back and the offense around them. Another thing that's going to help in general is Jakob Poeltl being young Shaquille O'Neal. The positive thing I'm finding in this 3-12 team is Jakob Poeltl's value going up. And I don't just mean that from a trade perspective. And this is something I'm writing about this week, actually, is there's this notion out there that you got to sell high on Jakob Poeltl. Yeah, I understand that. They're a rebuilding team. The timelines maybe don't work, but he's 29. He's not 39.
Yeah.
He still has a couple years left on his deal. And this is a guy who is one of the best screeners in the league, one of the best offensive rebounders in the league, an extremely efficient interior scorer. And no, he's not going to score 25 every night like he has the last 3 games and put up these 3-game stretches that are Shaq-like, but he might be a little more forceful on the offensive end and find his voice, I guess you can say, a little more on the offensive end. He talked about that after the game last night. Darko did as well. But in general, Jakob Poeltl is going to do the things that teams desperately need their big men to do outside of shooting. Fine, he's not the modern stretch big, but something I tweeted about this. Like I said, I'm writing about it. Raptors fans should be careful what they wish for when they look at selling high on Jakob Poeltl, because this guy is Exhibit A for the type of player that you trade him for rebuilding or timeline purposes, and then you spend 3 to 5 years trying to find a big man who can do what Jakob Poeltl does when you're ready to win. So I somehow turned that into a negative, but I meant it as a positive. Jakob Poeltl's play, his value going up for the Raptors too, not just in the eyes of other teams, is something that I'm finding as a silver lining in this bad start.
He is the canvas upon which development happens for this team, right? You cannot play functional Toronto Raptors basketball without what Jakob Poeltl does, and you're totally right. Like, beware of what you get back. Like, if you're trading Jakob Poeltl and you're getting a couple of first-round picks from a contender, so probably not great first-round picks, are those picks going to return the value that Jakob Poeltl does being on this team, helping to uplift all the guys we just talked about quickly? Barnes, Barrett, Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji. He fits beautifully with all of these guys and makes all of them better with his screening, with his interior finishing, with his rim protection. To me, if you want to trade Jakob Poeltl, you better have a succession plan in place for a real adult to be playing that position starting next season. Scotty Barnes is on his max deal next year. It's go time. Yeah. You cannot go into next year with a prospect. Yves Missi in a Pelicans trade is not your starting center if you're trying to be serious next year. Yeah. If you're trading Jakob Poeltl, you better have a plan for an upgrade or someone who's at least as good as him, which is not an easy thing to find because Jakob Poeltl, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen all the different centers the Raptors have shuffled through the years. Aaron Baines, Freddie Gillespie. I don't need to mention them all, but it is hard to find a center, like you said, that can, sets good screens as being, fulcrum of the offense at time and dribble handoffs and being able to be active on the glass and provide that consistent energy. Like, he fits well with this team. He does a lot of great things, and his salary isn't outrageous either. No. He's on a good contract, too. I mean, some people may have thought it was an overpay at the time, but, you're getting all of that for, honestly, pretty reasonable price.
Yeah. All positives. I said we'd talk about them for 6 minutes. We went 8, but how can you not want to talk about the most ethically tanking team ever? All right. Well, we'll definitely get you guys back in the studio at some point. Maybe we'll talk about the Raptors again when they're 12-36 and somehow tied for 7th in the East.
36-12. The streak has begun, baby.
Let's go. That's that toxic positivity we brought you in here for sure. All right. Chicco, Sean, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate you guys. For Chicco and Nacion, for Sean Woodley, for Adrian and Zach in the control room, my name is Joseph Casciaro. This has been the Unfiltered Show presented by Under Armour and Curry Brand. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.